Hello again, poets. This is our final video to get through our terms for our poetry unit. So by the end of this video, you will be able to describe sound devices that authors use in poetry. So things that make poems sound interesting. But first, let's do a quick review of what you just took notes on. So if you would like to look at the side of your paper with your language device note sheet, you will be able to better review this. I'm going to give you a few examples, or rather these cute bunnies are going to give you a few examples of some of the things that are on the note sheet, not all of them, to make sure that you really have in your mind exactly what you learned. So here we go. Bunny number 1 says, "My love is like a red, red rose." What is that an example of? If you said simile, you're correct because it compared love to a red rose by using the words like or as. My love is like a red rose. You would have to read the rest of the poem to figure out what the speaker means. So if you Google that, you'll find the poem. It's pretty awesome. Bunny number 2. I'm a black ocean leaping and wide. Think about that. Is the speaker really a black ocean? Well, you'd probably have to read the poem to find out, but I'm going to tell you that the speaker is a person. So if they're saying, I am a black ocean leaping and wide, it's actually two things. It's a metaphor comparing the speaker to a black ocean, and it's also personification because it says that the ocean is leaping, and oceans don't actually jump. So this gives us the impression that the speaker is free and open and happy and dancing, but it's much more beautiful and really gives me a great picture in my mind of the speaker of this poem. Unless she was just like, I'm happy, I like dancing. She says, I'm a black ocean leaping and wide. And you'll have to read that poem to find out why the word black is so important as well. That is the first poem in your zine if you want to check it out. Bunny number 3. Some people say I am bossy, but I just say that I'm a leader. I'm really good at telling people what to do and leading the way to success. Think about those two words, bossy versus leader. They both basically mean somebody that's in charge of other people. But what's the difference between those two words? Well, I'll tell you. It shows the difference in connotation between the words bossy and leader, right? When we say that person's really bossy, it's usually seen as a negative thing. People usually don't say, I love being around bossy people, but people will compliment people saying that they're a leader. So it's important to note when and how poets use specific words to make us think of positive or negative descriptors. So a poet that uses the word bossy about themselves or someone else is trying to make you think of a certain feeling versus if they use the word leader. All right, last one. Bunny number 2 is going to give us another example. We are beings of breath beyond the beings of boys. That is from Saul Williams. What do you hear repeated? You should hear that B sound repeated. That is called what? Alliteration. So alliteration, remember, is where we repeat those sounds over and over again. And in this example, the poet Saul Williams, and you can find this poem on page 6 of your zine, he uses that harsh sound B to express anger and seriousness as well as to emphasize the life breath of the boys. Since the B sound makes the reader really have to breathe to create it. If you repeat that line, I'll go back, over and over again. Whoops. I guess I have to go all the way back. Here we go. We are beings of breath beyond the beings of boys. At the end of that, you're kind of out of breath when you say that. So there we go. We'll talk more about alliteration later. Okay, that's our quick review on language devices. So go ahead and flip your note sheet over and look at poetry notes on sound devices. Here we go. You already on your sheet have the sound devices filled in so that you would know what page to turn to as you were doing your homework. So look at the one that is entitled Poetry Notes on Sound Devices. Here we go. So our first sound device is rhyme. This should be a great little review of something that you've probably been playing around with for a long time. It's when two words end with the same vowel or consonant sound. cat, hat, boy, joy, wabe, outgrabe, the ABE. That last syllable needs to be the same vowel consonant sound. There are different kinds of rhyme, though, which you might not know about. One type of rhyme in poetry is called end rhyme, and it's when the words that rhyme are at the end of the lines. So when I write a poem and I end the line with one word, and then the next line ends with a rhyming word, that's end rhyme. I love thee to the depth and breadth and height my soul can reach when feeling out of sight. See how the two rhyming words are at the ends of the line. But there's also something else called internal rhyme. An internal rhyme is when the words that rhyme are within the same line. So you get this a lot to emphasize words in the middle of a line. So this line, which comes out of the middle of a poem, says, whereas comes from one is but sun, we wrote them songs. So the one and the sun rhyme, and that's on purpose, but it's within the same line. That is internal rhyme, which just like internal conflict happens on the inside of something. Okay? And finally, we have something that we either call half rhyme or slant rhyme, and it's when the words almost rhyme, but not quite, but it creates the same effect as a full rhyme. So you'll see this as you read poems by Emily Dickinson. Also, many true rap artists are genius at half rhyme or slant rhyme, as well as country artists, or mostly anyone that's producing a type of music. A lot of times they'll use slant rhyme. So it's like day and victory don't rhyme, but if you put them in the poem in a similar place, it sounds like they do. So that is slant rhyme. 3 types of rhyme to know. And a cute bunny. All right, the next set is on rhyme scheme. Make sure that you fill in the blank where it says scheme. Rhyme scheme is the pattern of end rhymes in a poem. You use letters for each rhyming sound. So we talked about limericks, and they have a rhyme scheme of AABBA because the end rhyme in the first and second line is the same, and in the 5th line is the same. If you turn right now to page 5 in your zine, you will see a sonnet by William Shakespeare. The first thing you want to do is underline the last word of every line. So go ahead and do so now. So you should be underlining the words day, temperate, may, date, shines, dimmed, declines, untrimmed, fade, oest, shade, rowest, see, thee. So we always start with an A when we do rhyme scheme. So we would name line 1 rhyme A. So write a capital A on the line. Does temperate rhyme with day? No, so we'd call that rhyme B. Does may rhyme with temperate or day? Yes, it rhymes with day, so you'd call that rhyme A. And date is a slant rhyme with temperate, so we would call that rhyme B. Go ahead and try to map out the rest of the poem, remembering to use a new letter for each new rhyme. You can pause the video now to work on that. Okay, hopefully you did well teasing through that rhyme scheme, but we'll go over it in class in case it was difficult. Let's move on to onomatopoeia. Make sure that you say that word out loud, onomatopoeia, and you look at it because it's a very strangely spelled word. It is a word that suggests the sound that it makes. So examples are boom, pow, sizzle, buzz. So if you're really into comic books, for example, you know a lot about onomatopoeia. It could also be things like whistle for the wind. Okay? And a cute bunnies again. All right, we have 2 more things to look at. One is rhythm, and this is a really tricky thing because it's the pattern of stressed and unstressed syllables in a line. If you are not used to reading poetry, it might be kind of difficult to get the sense of rhythm, but I'm going to read a couple of lines out loud, and I want you to notice which words I stress and which ones I don't stress. So let me give you an example before I read that. In my name, Vaver, I don't say vaver, I say vaver. So I stress the first syllable in my name, but it's unstressed the second one. Each word has stressed and unstressed parts to it, and then when we put them together in a line, we can really see where the poet was going. So listen to how I read this line. What lips my lips have kissed, and where and why. Now you should note that the ands, I'm not saying and where and why. I'm really emphasizing the where and why. So this line goes, what lips my lips have kissed, and where and why. So every second word is stressed. That's one example, and we'll show you how to write that in class. And then the second part, which is from a poem, again, a different poem, goes like this. Success is counted sweetest by those who ne'er succeed. So you should hear again that rhythm going on. Success is counted sweetest by those who ne'er succeed. So again, I kind of emphasized at that time to give you a sense of how rhythm is dependent on how we say the words and how the whole line falls together. And our final word for the day is repetition. Repetition is just the way of saying that you make it a point to repeat words or phrases at least one time in order to emphasize the word or phrase. So some examples in a Sylvia Plath poem that you can find on page 9 or 10 in your zine. She repeats the words beware, beware. That's really creepy. Okay, she repeats it to emphasize that. She doesn't just say it one time. In the first poem in your zine, the poet says, you may shoot me with your words, you may cut me with your eyes. And she repeats it again, you may trod me down in the very dirt, but still, like dust, I'll rise. So she repeats the you may, to really emphasize that idea of you can do this, but it doesn't matter. So that is our overview. We talked about rhyme and the 3 different types of rhyme. We talked about end rhyme, internal rhyme, and half rhyme or slant rhyme. We talked about rhyme scheme, which is the pattern of end rhymes. We talked about onomatopoeia, rhythm, and repetition. So those, my students, my lovely scholars, are your sound devices that we will be talking about throughout this poetry unit. Have a wonderful day and make sure your notes are complete and you are ready to discuss them in class tomorrow.